The topic for today's discussion is the pleura. First of all, we'll discuss introduction to pleura. After that, the types of pleura, which are the visceral and the parietal pleura. Next, we'll discuss what is the pulmonary ligament, and then we'll discuss the recesses of the pleura, and finally, we'll discuss the neurovascular supply to pleura. Here, we can see that this is the thoracic cavity. Thoracic cavity is bounded by the thoracic cage, which is formed by the sternum in the front, the vertebra on the back, and the ribs on either sides. Inside, there is mediastinum in the center and the lungs on the two sides. The mediastinum has its lateral boundaries formed by the parietal pleura. So what is a pleura? Pleura is a covering of the lungs. Now pleura has two types. One is parietal pleura and one is visceral pleura. The parietal pleura is the outer pleura which is surrounding the inside of the thoracic cavity, and visceral pleura is the inside pleura which is surrounding the viscera, that is the lung. Now first of all, we'll discuss the parietal pleura. Parietal pleura is the outer pleura. It is further subdivided into four types. The first part of the parietal pleura, that is surrounding the immediately surrounding the apex of the lung, is called the cervical pleura. The cervical pleura is covered by suprapleural membrane, which is also the boundary or covering or the suprapleural membrane closes the thoracic outlet here. So cervical pleura is covering the apex of the lung. Next is the costal pleura. This blue line, as you can see, is the costal pleura. Why is it called the costal pleura? Because this is immediately inside the costa, the ribs. So it is the costal pleura. Then this green part is the diaphragmatic pleura, this green line. It is called the diaphragmatic pleura because it is in proximity with the diaphragm. As you can see, this is the dome of the diaphragm. Next, fourth part of parietal pleura is the mediastinal pleura. This magenta line is the mediastinal pleura. So the parietal pleura has four parts. First, the costal pleura, first is the cervical pleura, then is the costal pleura, third is the diaphragmatic pleura, and fourth is the mediastinal pleura. And on this side, as you can see, this purple line is the parietal pleura, and this orange line is the visceral pleura. On this side, this lung is collapsed, that's why it is appearing so small. So this orange line is the visceral pleura, and on this side the lung is normal, and this orange line is the visceral pleura which is surrounding the viscera, that is the lung. Here you can also see that this is one lung which is surrounded by the cervical pleura at the tip of the lung or apex of the lung, then costal pleura on the costal surface of the lung, then diaphragmatic pleura on the base of the lung, and fourth is the mediastinal pleura on the medial surface of the lung. Here this outer lining is the parietal pleura, and this pink lining is the visceral pleura. On this side the lung is collapsed, and on this side the lung is normal. Now we'll discuss the recesses of the pleura. What are recesses? Recesses are open spaces which allow some structure to expand during a particular movement. In this case, the lungs during deep inspiration expand and enter a certain space, and that space is called the recess of the pleura. The lung has two recesses. One is the costomediastinal recess and one is the costodiaphragmatic recess. The costomediastinal recess is between the costal pleura and the mediastinal pleura here. This space is the costomediastinal pleura. And the costodiaphragmatic pleura is between the costal pleura and the diaphragmatic pleura, as indicated by the name, and this is called the costodiaphragmatic recess. The costodiaphragmatic recess is adjacent to 7th to 10th ribs, and this has special clinical significance, as I'll tell you later on. Recesses allow the lungs to expand during deep inspiration. In this picture we can see that in the center is the mediastinum, These are the lungs which are surrounded by the visceral pleura. Visceral pleura closely adheres to the lungs and it enters the fissures of the lung. This line is the fissure of the lung. The visceral pleura enters into the fissures of the lung. Here we can see that this space is the costomediastinal recess, and this space is the costodiaphragmatic recess that is adjacent to 7th to 10th ribs. The importance of this recess is that during thoracocentesis, or a procedure in which we take out excess air or fluid in the parietal space, it is taken out in from this space. The needle is passed between the 7th and 8th rib in this 8th intercostal space in the lower surface, so that the neurovascular bundle that is located in the upper part of the intercostal space is not disturbed. So now let's discuss what is a pulmonary ligament. Pulmonary ligament is generally the parietal pleura and the visceral pleura are separated from each other, and the space between these two pleura is called the parietal space. What happens is that at the area of the root of the lung, where various structures enter or leave the lung, it is called the root of the lung. At this point, the parietal pleura and the visceral pleura adhere to each other. So this area is called the pulmonary ligament. Nerve supply of pleura is such that the parietal pleura is derived from the somatopleuric mesoderm, so it is supplied by the somatic nerves, and the visceral pleura is derived from the splanchnopluric mesoderm, so it is supplied by the autonomic nerves. The difference between the parietal and visceral pleura is very important. Developmentally, the visceral pleura is derived from the splanchnopluric mesoderm and the parietal pleura is derived from the somatopleuric mesoderm. The position of the visceral pleura is that it immediately surrounds the lung and enters into the fissures of the lung, and the parietal pleura lines the thoracic wall, mediastinum, and the diaphragm. The nerve supply is such that the sympathetics for visceral pleura is from T2 to T5 ganglia, and the parasympathetics are from vagus nerve, and the parietal pleura is supplied by thoracic nerves and the phrenic nerves. The visceral pleura is insensitive to pain, and the parietal is sensitive to pain. The visceral pleura is supplied by bronchial vessels, and the parietal pleura is supplied by the intercostals and the pericardiophonic vessels. Lymphatics of the visceral pleura drain into the tracheobronchial lymph nodes, and those of the parietal drain into the intercostal lymph nodes. This is the procedure of thoracocentesis. As I told you before, it is the fluid or air, anything that is present in the diseased part of the parietal space, that's taken out from the 8th intercostal space, and the needle is passed in the lower part of the intercostal space, so as the neurovascular bundle that is present in the upper part of the intercostal space is not disturbed or damaged. Thank you.